Hi, I'm Wes, and today I'll be rapping Fox and Socks by Dr. Seuss. Okay. Take it slowly. This book is dangerous. Fox, socks, box, knocks, knocks in box, and fox and socks. Knocks on fox and socks in box. Socks on knocks and knocks in box. Fox and socks on box on knocks. Checks with bricks come, checks with blocks come, checks with bricks and blocks and clocks come. Look, sir, Mr. Knox, sir. Let's do tricks with bricks and blocks, sir. Let's do tricks with checks and clocks, sir. First we'll make a quick trick, brick stab. Then I'll make a quick trick, block stab. You can make a quick trick, chick stab. You can make a quick trick, block stab. And here's a new trick, Mr. Knox. We call stocks on chicks and chicks on fox. Fox on clocks on bricks and blocks. Bricks and blocks on clocks on blocks. Now we come to the ticks and tocks, sir. Try to say this one, Mr. Knox, sir. Clocks on fox tick, clocks on knocks talk. Sick, bricks tick, sick, chicks talk. Please, sir, I don't like this trick, sir. My tongue is a trick, but slick, sir. I get all of those ticks and blocks, sir. Mixed up with the chicks and talks, sir. I can't do it, Mr. Fox, sir. I'm so sorry, Mr. Knox, sir.
All right, well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Seuss Loops Literary Connections using BandLab for Education. My name is Emily DiMarzio. I currently teach in the West New York School District in Hudson County. We are right across the river from New York City. I have 9 years teaching experience, teaching from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade, and my school currently is a kindergarten through 6th grade school. So in this presentation today, we're going to go through a bunch of things. So we will discuss the rationale behind the Seuss Loops project. Yes, I did come up with the name, and I will tell you how that came about on the next slide. We're going to look at task analysis questions. So what did I need to know, and what did students need to know in order to get to our end result? I'm going to show you some resources for getting started if you are a beginning BandLab user. I'm going to show you my Seuss Loops project timeline and the rubrics that I used with students. I'm going to show you the project results. We are going to see some student examples in action. I'm then going to go over the changes that I implemented. I originally started this project last year, and we are in the process right now with students of working on it this year. So I'm going to go through the changes that I made after troubleshooting the first time through. I'm also going to tell you about troubleshooting within the BandLab for Education platform. There sometimes are some snafus that can happen, and so I want to give you some options for that. We will look at some potential project extensions. I will then give you some time to brainstorm within this session so you can digest this information and figure out how you can take it to your own classrooms and situations. And then I'll leave some time for some discussion and some questions and answers at the end. If you never did, you should. These things are fun, and fun is good. So this is from One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. And yes, this is something that I've never done with kids, but it ended up being so fun and so good. So why Seuss Loops? First, when I came up with the name, I was a little hungry. So if you accidentally called my presentation Fruit Loops when you were telling people about it, that was the line of thinking that I had. But also, we are talking about Seuss, and we are talking about creating loops, so it just seemed to make sense. So this originally started for me when I saw the West Tank video that I showed you on the screen. Came out in 2020. I ended up seeing it on my Facebook feed in the spring of 2021 while we were still in the midst of remote learning. And first thing I thought was, this is cool. Second thing I thought was something that felt so familiar to me, like Fox and Socks, and a Dr. Dre produced beat mixed together felt so fresh and exciting. Bonus points if you know where you could find that beat in what song. It's a little modified. It's down a key. So we would find that beat in Slim Shady. So if you listen to Slim Shady, you would find that beat there. So something that seems familiar, especially to people of my generation, and we were able to create something so new. So In addition to being something just new and creative, when I saw Dr. Seuss as the topic, I instantly thought about Read Across America. I don't know if that's big in your school. It's big in mine. We have a district-wide decoration contest. Our central office comes around, they judge those decorations, and we also have guest readers from the high school come, and they present to our elementary school students. So then I was thinking, in the midst of the pandemic, and everyone just felt so disjointed and separated, why not have my 6th grade students do this for the younger grades in my school? We have such a wide age range. They can be able to be role models for those younger kids, and giving them an opportunity to do so just seemed to make sense to me. Not only would it give them the chance to present in actually a less pressuring way, because they're scared to perform for their peers, but for the younger kids who are an eager audience, and maybe they're performing for the younger brothers, sisters, cousins, that's exciting for them. So another way to get them presenting, also a way to show kids that reading can be fun. Reading is fun. And when kids that are young see older students showing them reading is fun, they remember those things. And that's something they take with them throughout their academic careers. I also thought about BandLab and Soundtrap. I'd heard of teachers using them in their classrooms, doing great things with great success. And I said, okay, I'm a Mac user. I use GarageBand, so I'm familiar with a digital audio workstation, but not gonna be able to use GarageBand in my students' situation because we're not an Apple school, but we have Google Chromebooks, so BandLab and Soundtrap seems like viable options. So I was figuring out which one of those I would like to use, and I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create student-created loops. We're gonna put them with the Dr. Seuss books. We're gonna present those for Read Across America. So not only is this fun and engaging, but students learn so much. So how does this benefit students? Students will exhibit the following skills. So within just the BandLab for Education platform, they are learning editing skills. They are dragging and dropping loops into the mix editor. They are lengthening and shortening the loops. And they're placing them in ways that are appealing to them. They're learning composition and arrangement. So what is the genre? Or sometimes we talk about like the vibe that we're going for. What's the vibe that we're going for? And then they're arranging the loops as well within the tracks in the mix editor. They are learning proficiency with a digital audio workstation. As we see more music coming out on the internet, this is where our students need to be going. Because if they want to start sharing music in an accessible way to them, and they want to share it out quickly, having proficiency with a digital audio workstation is crucial. And the great thing about BandLab for Education, which I will talk about a little bit more later, is that because the fact that it is free, and for right now it is free indefinitely, students, when they learn the skills in my classroom, they can then use those same skills and create their own personal projects. And they can use that with skills that they've learned in my classroom. They're gonna learn troubleshooting, as with any technological app. If something's not working the way you want it to, if something's not sounding the way we want to, how are we gonna go and fix that? And then they're gonna learn teamwork and communication. So if they're working in groups to create these loops and perform these reps, what do we want to agree on? What's the style that we want? What tempo do we need? There's different ability levels in my class based on students' familiarity with the rap genre, right? So some students, they go home, they practice raps by their favorite artists. They have a sense of that style and delivery, and maybe some students don't have that same experience. So how do we work together and make a tempo that works for all the ability levels within our group? And we're communicating also on which parts of the text are we going to rap, or are we gonna rap it all at the same time? And then with rapping known text, with these Dr. Seuss books, them being physical books, students are learning storytelling skills, how to clearly convey a story. If they're showing the physical book, they're gonna turn it around to show the pictures and then continue. Style and delivery. So looking at the themes of the text, is this a text that is a little more anxious or urgent? Is this a text that is calm and mellow? Is this an instructional text? That's going to determine how students present style, and delivery. It's going to affect the tempo. It's going to affect whether the words that they're using are smooth. Is it a smooth, mellow line? Are the pitches kind of the same throughout? Or is it punchy? Are there certain words that pop out at you to emphasize something? Students are going to learn presentation skills, and like I said before, being able to present to younger grades allows them to do this in a less threatening way to them. And then familiarity with different styles of literature. So while Dr. Seuss is known by many, do all kids that come into contact with me in my classroom really know all the Dr. Seuss books? They may not. So understanding how he's phrasing his words, how he's using rhymes within his stories. And of course, as this project expands, and we'll look at this a little bit later, you can see how it can also relate to other kinds of literature that you may want students to be familiar with that may come from different backgrounds, different cultures, have different themes. So then why BandLab for Education? So like I said before, BandLab for Education is free for students without restriction. So as you go into that website, right now it's free. You have all these resources. And not only for students to be able to use those skills, but for me as an educator trying this for the first time, I was like, you know what? Let me try the free thing. Let me make sure this is actually going to work with my students, because if I do a paid version and my district is paying for it, and then maybe I'm not the best at teaching it or it's not quite working out, using the free version is a little bit less of a risk for me. BandLab for Education is also COPPA compliant. So if you're working with internet apps with younger kids, this is especially important. So it stands for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which states certain ways that internet apps have to handle information for students under the age of 13. Technically, students cannot consent to a social media platform without being 13 and without parental consent. So BandLab for Education works very similar to Google Classroom. If you use Google Classroom, you're able to, it's just you and the students, you're able to create classes within the platform, and then students are able to join your classroom through a code, and you're able to create assignments right within the platform. You can grade right within the platform. You can give feedback right within the platform. It is easy to connect with Google Classroom as well. So if you're a Google school and your kids have those Gmail accounts, they can just click the sign in with Google button. It'll take all their information, just transfer it across, and they're ready to begin. You can also connect the assignments into your Google Classroom if you wish. For me, I found it easier just to give the link and then have them complete the assignments within BandLab for Education, and I graded them through there. Also user-friendly, so easy to click, drag, drop loops, manipulate the loops, easy for teachers and students to learn with the plethora of resources that are out there. And not for nothing, this is a free resource, but there are many different instruments and genres from which to choose. So there is no skimping here. This is a really wonderful resource for students to be able to use. And if you were to go to the BandLab and the Soundtrack websites, these are just screenshots of what you would see if you went and looked at what each platform offers at their free tier. So, the things we will think. So these are the task analysis questions. So what do I need to know to be able to lead students to the end goal? So first, I need to become familiar with BandLab for Education. Just enough so that I can teach this to students later, but I have to be familiar and comfortable enough in order to help students out with troubleshooting and different things that might come up when learning the tools for this particular platform. And in order to do this, I wanted to find and utilize resources to allow for practice. I did, as I think a lot of us may do, I went to Teachers Pay Teachers. And when I searched BandLab lessons, one of the first things that popped up was a wonderful bundle of introductory lessons with screenshots and text instructions. And I said, this is great, because not only can I explain it and learn it myself, but students can also see those same pictures, and we can follow on together to learn these tools and be able to practice. I then wanted to define the parameters for loop creation. So BandLab is a big resource. What exactly do I want students to be able to show me that they know? What's the end goal going to look like for the project, and how am I going to grade it? So I do have some rubrics that I will share. I then needed to determine the Dr. Seuss text that would be used. So these text titles came right from my school's library. There were a ton there. I was able to select a bunch of titles, and I also picked titles that reflected different reading levels to make sure that I was allowing for differentiation. And then finally, I needed to plan when students would present to the younger grades. So I wanted it to happen around Read Across America Week, which is that last week of February into the first few days of March. And just being sure that I knew I had enough groups, being sure I knew what grade levels they were going to visit and when they would do that. And then what do students need to know to achieve the end goal? So they need to practice finding and manipulating loops. They need knowledge of tempo and looping functions. And then they also need knowledge of delivering text to the beat of the created loops. Not only are we making those loops, we gotta make sure we can actually deliver it to what has been created. So, the phases we will undergo. So when I was looking at how I wanted to do this with kids, I decided to split it into 3 different phases. So phase number 1 is to prepare. So students complete 3 preparatory lessons to prepare them for the Seuss Loops project. So these lessons have smaller objectives and are working on the actual loop manipulation. We're all creating the same thing so that we can see that we are understanding the tools. And as we go further down the preparatory lessons, it does allow for more choice as the lessons go on. Phase number 2, students are collaborating together on the Seuss Loops project. So loops are placed in BandLab following the provided rubric, and students are preparing their existing text. So in this case, this was the physical Dr. Seuss books. And then in phase 3, students present their projects. Students present privately to the teacher and have the option to present to lower grades. So I don't know about you, but I've noticed coming back from the pandemic just how anxiety-inducing presenting has become. And it's always been a thing, right? Kids have always had, anxiety, stage fright, things like that, but I've seen it to such a greater degree, and I am working every day to have activities where students are getting out of their comfort zone and we're able to make mistakes in a comfortable way, and it's getting better, but I know that it takes time, and I know that it takes trust. So right now they are presenting their group projects privately to me, so I have them come in the hallway while other student groups are practicing. And then they have the option to present for the lower grades. So while realistically I would love for every group to present to the lower grades, if I had everyone present, I wouldn't have enough classes to present to. And I just have to be conscious of the fact that that's not something that everyone exactly feels comfortable with right now. But what I do is I allow students to receive extra credit for presenting to the lower grades. And then I actually had some students be like, Misty, if I present to the lower grades, do I get to have class? And I'm like, well, technically, yes, you can't be 2 places at once. So I wish that wasn't a motivating factor, but for some students that was a motivator. So that's how I was able to come up with some different student groups for presenting. So last year I had about six or 7 groups. This year it's expanding. I have about 10 groups who are ready to present for the other grades. So that's very exciting to see that the motivation is there and it's growing, and kids are becoming more comfortable as we're getting out of the pandemic. And then here's my timeline. So I see my students once a week for 40 minutes. So this is a pretty long timeline because I also have to schedule for fire drills, snow days, surprise assemblies. I mean, you find out the day before there's an assembly, you're like, okay, cool, I guess we'll push that another week. So I started my timeline in December. I took 3 weeks to do the preparatory lessons, and then coming back from the winter break, January the 2nd week to February the 2nd week, kids are preparing those projects. That gives them about 4 class periods to do so. And then the 3rd and 4th week of February, students are presenting those projects. So I'll go a little bit more into this. So first week I am doing Getting Started with BandLab from Classroom Composers on Teachers Pay Teachers. So this is one of those screenshot lessons, and I'll actually show you how to get there on the next slide. With this one, it shows you everything. It shows you how to get students to log in, how to give them the class code, where do they click to join the class. It's great, and I was able to do this just right with the students, like, we're gonna do this, now we're gonna do this, now we're gonna do this, just to make sure everybody was on the same page that first day. And then with that assignment, students are then typing in the search bar for how to search for specific loops and are dragging and dropping those in. So that is the first objective. And to be honest, with technology sometimes in the internet, I don't usually complete that getting started. There's 4 loops that they can put in. I usually get to about 2. Some students, however, do go ahead and they do those 4 loops. And then that is the objective for that day. December the 2nd week, we do Electro Mango, which is super fun to say. And that is one of the styles of loops within BandLab for Education, also from Classroom Composers. So now that we've created our accounts, we can log in pretty quickly and we can get started and finish this particular assignment. So in this one, students are searching up a particular style of loop, but then within that style, they're now choosing different instruments from within that pack. So now they are learning how to choose and they have more sense of choice within that particular lesson. That lesson also has them achieve a layered effect. So where one loop starts right at the beginning, another loop starts 4 measures in, 4 measures in, 4 measures in, to get them to be able to start editing and moving those loops to different starting points to create that layered effect. And then December the 3rd week, this is actually not from Classroom Composers, this is actually something I developed because I wanted students to be able to remix an existing audio track. So it was December, I was like, I want something festive, I want something instrumental, and the Nutcracker popped up in my brain. I originally did Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. This did not work, and I will explain why later when I talk through this, but yeah, the tempos are all over the place. That doesn't work. It's too lilting. It's a ballet piece, right? You're following the dancer. Doesn't work. But that's okay, because I changed it for this year. And then preparing the Seuss Leaps project and presenting, which I already explained before. Okay, so if you were to click here, which you can, I'll have a QR code at the end that you can scan to get these slides, or it's also on the handout too. So you had a handout and it says like, scan to automatically download the slides. You can do that. So if you were to click here, you would get to the introductory lessons that I used. Here's a screenshot from the TPT page, and here are the lesson overviews. So like I said before, they're figuring out how to put the loops in. Number 2, they have more choice. And then number 3, even though I have not used this one, this objective is very similar to the one that I have for my Nutcracker Remix project, which is students will explore simple musical form through BandLab. But if you decide not to use those resources, like, you know what, I don't really want to like pay for that right now, so how do I get started? Well, it's as easy as 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish, because I had 3 steps. So number 1, you create your teacher account and be sure that you're using edu.bandlab.com, not just bandlab.com, because edu.bandlab.com is that COPPA compliant BandLab for Education platform. It's really easy to mix up the two, and you do not want students signing up for BandLab, especially if they're young and it's a social media account and people can message them, and that's weird. Don't do that. Do edu.bandlab.com. It's what you want. Number 2, creating those student accounts. So students can create accounts by filling in their school email and providing password if that's how your school does things. But for us, we're a Google school, so they just click that Google button, their stuff is right in there. And they don't have to input any additional information. And then teachers can provide the class code to students. And then number 3, you can start creating assignments. So assignments can be created directly in BandLab for Education and connected to Google Classroom if desired. If I ever shorten it to BandLab when I'm talking about it with my students, it's BandLab for Education, just to clear the air. Sometimes I'm not going to say the whole thing. Okay, so let's take a look at an introductory lesson example. So this is Electro Mango, if it loads, which it was working before. We'll see if it happens. Yes, okay, cool. All right, so as that loads, we're going to see a student example here. I'll get that out of the way. So you can see that this one, it starts at the beginning, and then the student started at number 5, 4 measures later, measure 9, and it's all going to end in the same spot. And then you can also see that there's a beat, a synth bass, chords, and a lead. So there's 4 different instruments within that Electro Mango style. So I'll just play a little bit for you, so you can kind of get a sense of how this looks in action. We got the beat going, and And then you'll hear that synth bass come in. It's pretty groovy. Let's go ahead and so just a little taste of that, so you kind of get an idea of what that particular lesson looks like. And then we have the Nutcracker remix example. So, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy did not work. It was a mess. I was sad. But this year, I just changed it to Tree Pop, Dance of the Candy Canes. Much more consistent tempo. Still a few lilts. So what I did was I made a remix track. So I took a public domain track, I stuck it in, and then I created some spaces just to be sure that it was lining up with some of those tempo changes. And I do want to show you the instructions just so we can talk about different ways to adjust tempo within BandLab. So I'll click that and I'll show you. Yes, I want to make a copy, sure. Okay. So when I introduce this to students, I just play the song outright. Kids are like, oh yeah, I recognize this. It's from like Elf, it's from Home Alone, whatever, you know, all these different places where we hear the Nutcracker these days. And so we determine where we're hearing different sections and different things. So we're playing through it, I'm like, okay, we get to measure 9. Okay, like, is this the same or different? Oh, this is the same, okay, great. Okay, now it's different. So we determine where those different sections are, and I give them the vocabulary for that. So we have A, B, interlude, A, and then there is a coda. So this is for you guys. When you set this up in BandLab for Education, you can upload the track by dragging and dropping it into the mix editor. You can download it automatically right from my slides. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna adjust the tempo from 120 to 152. So if I were to go back to, and I'll show you this a little bit later when I kind of go in and show you some different options for saving, I'll show you the tempo. You just backspace the numbers that are there. You can just type 152, press enter, and then you're actually gonna click don't adjust, because you want the audio to stay exactly the same, but you want the loops that kids are gonna put in to now match this tempo of the audio. So when you click don't adjust, the loops are gonna automatically push themselves to 152. Your audio is already there. And then the cuts are intentional to line up with audio in the measures and mix editor. When you put the beats in, it sounds like a completed piece, so those spaces aren't really too relevant. And then here I gave you where those cuts are, and kids will add a beats loop under each new form section. So for the first stage section, they're putting in a loop of their choice, a beats loop, because we don't really want to mess up with the audio and put anything that's melodic. 9 through 17 is the second one, and then so on and so forth. You could even post this in front of the room just to give kids that reminder so that they know as they're working where they're going to with each of these different loops. And then, I can get back, nope, not that one. Okay, so I'll show you this example. Yes, okay, cool. I'm so happy the internet's working today. I was really worried. I truly was, but it would have still been okay. Okay, cool. So, as you can see here, we've got this first loop that comes in from 1 to 9, then you're going to see 9 to 17. So you're going to hear how each section changes. There is a different loop situation going on. Now with each change, it's how that different fields reinforce the form of the piece. So that was a fun one. And let's see what's next. Oh, okay, so here are my Seuss loops rubrics. So after we've done these preparatory pieces and I've graded those, we come back the second week of January and we're ready to look at how we're gonna do this Seuss loops project. I kept these rubrics pretty simple because I really wanted to see what students were able to come up with. And with the idea of wrapping the text, we are looping it over and over, and there is a cycle function within BandLab. So kids really only need to put in those first 4 measures, and then that's gonna keep bouncing back for them. So they have unlimited music as they are wrapping their text. So I know it's small up here, but you know, you can download the slides, you can see this. My criteria for 100% for the loop is loop has at least 3 different tracks, each containing a different type of instrument. So a beat, a bass, a pad, whatever style that you decide that you like. And tracks all start and end at the same time for seamless looping. And then kids will lose points as certain things are not included. And then for the performance, to get 100%, rap flows with the loop. Attention is paid to the beat, so we're not just like speaking over the music and not really paying attention to what's there. We're internalizing that beat, we're feeling it as we're presenting. All group members have an equal chance to perform, or they perform all together at the same time. I've had some groups do that. And delivery is clear and style is present. So was this intentionally practiced? Is there apparent style, or does it seem like it was kind of just thrown together? And you'll see that there's different criteria for that as well. Here's problems and solutions. So after I went through the first year and I said, okay, what doesn't work? What do I need to fix? So first, dance the Sugar Plum Fairy for the Nutcracker remix assignment did not work. It was so inconsistent, it was a mess. So I replaced it with Tree Pop, more consistent tempo. That worked out for that. Okay, so this hasn't happened to me this year, but it did happen to me my first year, and I do have some colleagues who have told me that this is still kind of happening. Sometimes the student work isn't saving, and it may not be every class. It might be like just a cluster of kids in one class. So I do have some options to work around that, and we'll take a look at the student work not saving slide for that. Some students were unfamiliar with rap style, and as we went through the first year, I was, trying to give them some tidbits and stuff, but I realized we had to have a bigger discussion about this. While most of my kids do listen to rap and hip hop, I have to be cognizant that not everybody does, and they would not be familiar with how to deliver. They're like, well, I can't rap, I don't know that. Well, sure you do, but we have to think about how we're gonna be delivering that text. So I presented school appropriate clips representing different rappers. Yes, I will tell you what those clips are. We will look at the style delivery slide also to talk about questions that I discussed with kids for this. Number 4, like I said before, realized some books were quite long to read. Cat in the Hat takes around 8 to 9 minutes. So my solution, be okay with having students perform excerpts and perform for fewer groups. So perhaps taking 3 or 2 classes and combining them together for students to present. Is that a question?
Just a thought for you as well.
Oh, sure.
Some of the Seuss books, or in that same vein of books, also have younger kid editions.
So the foot book, yes.
And I was surprised to know, oh my gosh, there's a larger version of this that has like 8 more pages. So
right.
as we're going through this, I'm going like, oh, maybe those are more appropriate to.
Right, and of course I was working with what I had in my school library, but I noticed that there's the younger kids ones, like Footbook was very easy to get through, Hop on Pop was very easy to get through, and then there's just something that didn't really register with me. I'm like, okay, now I understand some of these actually are longer. They're not all equal lengths and equal, pages. So excerpts also work too. I may look at some of those younger kid books. And being okay for performing for fewer groups. Maybe they're performing twice instead of going to all 4 of the classes in that grade level. And then I determined the groups that wanted to perform a little too late. So like the teachers that kids were going to were informed, but like the 6th grade teachers weren't informed. And then they were like, why are you going somewhere else? And that was the whole thing. So I'm asking students sooner so I know who to anticipate. I'm adjusting the timeline to accommodate for more time I need to adjust for seeing those presentations and figuring out who's going to perform and being sure that all teachers are involved in that communication. I'm actually going to send that email probably tomorrow to make sure everyone knows where they're going. Okay, so when you don't know, simply go with the flow. This is a Dr. Seuss quote. So what happens when student work doesn't save? There are 2 good options. So number 1, you can have students download the mix down as an audio file and email you the file if you don't need to see the tracks in the mix editor and don't need students to loop their music. You're just gonna hear it, you're gonna see it's like a sound wave, but you really won't be able to see their knowledge of how the loops are being put in.
They can't download the mix down in the assignment if they can't see
Ooh, good point. So also this is with number 2, good point. You can have students complete this as a personal project. So when you click on an assignment and you say start assignment, there's 2 things. So teacher's assignment will link it to your assignment and you can actually see student progress. Personal project will keep it personal on their level. However, they can submit that to your assignment. The only thing is you can't really see it in real time on your own device. You'd have to be walking around and monitoring students that way. But yeah, then from there you could download the mixdown. You can also have them submit that as an assignment, and you will see the finished product of that. So actually, let me just show you that real quick. So if I'm going into, let me see if I can find the one I wanted to show you. Oh, I can just use this. So for example, if I'm in this Electro Mango example here, and I wanted to go ahead and download that, I would click download mixdown as, and then this would prompt to have you choose a way you want to do it, and then you're going to have all those tracks as a sound file. So it could be a WAV, it could be an MP3. And then this is actually not in a personal project, this is in the teacher's assignment, but you also can submit it as a personal project. It looks exactly the same, just you won't be able to see the in progress as the teacher on your own device. And then I also do want to show you, like, so, oh, I can't actually show you here because this is a locked one. Oh, here, this is what I wanted. Okay, so changing the tempo, right? So I talked about that before. So this one's at 130, but if I wanted, I could backspace that. I could change it to 152. I would press enter. And then it's going to give me that prompt, right? Like, do you want to adjust this or not? So if you want the current audio to stay the same and you want other stuff to come in at that tempo, you would click don't adjust. If you want to change everything, which is what I had students do, because if they were choosing tempos that were too fast for them to rap, I would have them lower the tempo and click adjust to give them a slower beat in order to rap to. Is there anything else? Oh, this is the cycle function. So this is great because once this bar comes up, it highlights what's going to be looped and repeated. So if I were to go back and then, like, this is actually some of the examples from last week. It'll go and just bounce right back. And that would have infinite music as we're going, so someone doesn't have to sit there and press pause and play and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are my examples there. I'll get back into preset mode. That would be good. Okay. So why fit in when you were born to stand out? Also a Dr. Seuss quote. And this is talking about developing personal style and delivery. So 3 selections that I used below with students, and I gave specific timestamps for appropriate examples for my 6th grade class. So the first thing, I tried to find rappers that were popular in different decades. So currently, a lot of my kids really like Ice Spice. So Ice Spice's verse in the Karma remix by Taylor Swift provided a good example. I used the clean video for this one, and that, if you click that, it would take you right to that video so you could see it, and the timestamp is there for you. For someone that was in the popular in the 2000s, Eminem's Lose Yourself. Once again, you can click that, timestamp is there for you. And then even though this song came out in 2012, Nas was popular in the 90s, so we have I Can. That timestamp is there for you as well. So feel free to take a look at those, figure out if that's appropriate for your students. You could go longer or shorter, just keeping in mind that not all parts of the song may be appropriate for your student population. And then as we listen to each example, I just said, I'm not gonna tell you who it is, like, because you're gonna have an opinion, just listen, and if you can figure out who it is, cool. But then, as we get to the end, what are the questions that I wanna ask? So first I asked, what do you notice about each example? And I would take, any and all answers for that. Is the style smooth or punchy? So as we were listening to Ice Spice in the first example, we found that her style was very smooth in this particular example. Her pitch didn't really fluctuate too much. We found that Eminem in Lose Yourself, he had a much more punchy, a louder delivery, and he would emphasize certain words. Are the words fast or slow? So what's the vibe of this? Is this chill? Is this something a little more urgent? And does it change as the line changes, right? So if you've got more information to say, that text may move faster to fit within that loop. Or if there's not a lot of information to say, it may go slower. And then do the rhymes happen at the ends of thoughts? Or do they happen in the middle of thoughts? Because we saw that Ice Spice and Nas both had their rhymes happen at the end of thoughts, but Eminem, he would interject rhymes in the middle of his sentences, which kind of gave it that punchy, kind of jagged feel to it. So things for your kids to consider when they're looking for styles that they might want to emulate in their own delivery. So you've got brains in your head, you've got feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. So as this project develops, it started with Seuss, it doesn't end with Seuss. As I went forward with this, there's so many other things I want to bring in, specifically different kinds of literature that's not just an old white guy, right? I want to be able to bring in things that are from different cultures, different backgrounds, and represent the kids that are in my school. And that was actually what I was going to do this year until, well, I'll tell you. So with Read Across America, our school-wide theme this year is fairy tales. So I was approached by the librarian and the reading specialist. They said, hey, like, we know you're doing this thing because you did it last year. This year, our theme is fairy tales. So could that be something that you incorporate into this project? I said, yes, always willing to collaborate and jump in and help, make a better school community where we're all kind of doing things together. But if I was going to start my project on the timeline that I had, I would have to pick examples within the next 4 days. So I had a quick turnaround on this, and I said, okay, are there things that are already wraps that are in fairy tale form? And yes, so the one on the right here, once again, teachers pay teachers. This is Fairy Tale Wraps Bundle. So it is made for grades 2 through 4. As kids are wrapping it in the 6th grade though, I'm noticing that as they are having the extra challenge of performing the wrap, having something that's a little slightly below their reading level is perfectly fine. Also, they are presenting it for around this grade level, so that makes a ton of sense. And then also, once again, it was like, okay, but I don't just want well-known stuff from England and France. I want stuff that represents other parts of the world. And there's legends and myths from all around the world. So I found this other resource, folk tales, fairy tales, fables, tall tales, myths, and legends from around the world. And so this one presented shorter, kid-friendly, easy-to-read versions of these myths and tales. There's a ton. I did not use all of them. I used 5. So there's Silver on the Hearth from Afghanistan. There's Demeter and Persephone, which is a Greek legend. There is Fire, which is from the Alabama tribe. The First Tears, which is an Inuit legend. And The Rabbit and the Crocodile from Thailand. So as I went through, I picked things that were from different areas that seemed to be appropriate for the kids that they were going to be reading for. They don't rhyme as a rap, but they do have lines that do lend itself to rapping. Kids have been very creative with those examples, and they're going to be presenting those next week, which is very exciting. So then, with year 3, what I want to incorporate in the future, I want to incorporate diverse perspectives. So these are books that me and my librarian went through and we deemed were going to work for the project and also represented lots of different backgrounds. So just a few out of here, Change Sings by Amanda Gorman already lends itself to being a song, to being an anthem. It's written like song lyrics, like poetry. And the lines are pretty short, so that lends itself well. Your Name is a Song. This one, I actually read with kindergarten at the beginning of the year, and we do an activity where they sing their names for me at the end of it. It's very sweet. And it would be really cool to be able to bring a book that I've already done with kindergarten back to kindergarten in a new and different way from different readers. And then on the next page, I Am Courage lends itself really well to this. Shorter lines, poetic lines, and then You Have a Voice, which rhymes, and also talks about how you can speak out against racism, which I think is just a wonderful theme for students to be able to know how to do. So this is where I am hoping the project will go, so I am planning on using those books next year, and you can look for yourself. All of these are available as read-alouds on YouTube, so you can search these yourself to see if that's something that you would like to pursue. How are we on time?
11 minutes.
11 minutes. Great. Okay. So at this point, so we are at Think and Wonder, Wonder and Think. So this is the part for brainstorming. So as you've been looking through this presentation, I'm sure you have some maybe different ideas or questions that are popping up, or maybe some ideas how you might bring this into your own classroom. So if you have the handout, this will be, you're going to have those same questions there. If you didn't get a handout, it's right outside on the music stand, right outside the door. So questions that we're going to be thinking about. So what are some aspects of incorporating band lab and literature in the classroom that you find either interesting or maybe challenging, maybe something that you want to look more into. Number 2, what aspects would be easy to implement right away? It's always good to know, okay, what can I do right now? Number 3, how might you apply this project to your own teaching situation? And number 4, what extensions to this project would you implement? So for me, it was incorporating different diverse perspectives. But this could go a number of ways, right? Maybe you're doing a retelling, maybe you're doing like an audio video project, right? This could go in many ways. So I'm actually gonna give you some time now. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to take the time now to digest this, because I know for me, like when I'm at this conference, I go session, 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 and I can't even think about like what I even took away from that, and then I have to look at it later, and then I forget. So I want to give you that time to digest now. So take that time, jot down what you're thinking for those questions. You can work with someone next to you if you're really feeling it. If you want to do it by yourself, that is okay too. And then we'll talk about it. Okay. So
This is great, thank you.
if there's no other questions, I want to thank you so much for coming, because I know you have like so many choices and presentations. There was like, I think 18 happening during this hour. Thank you for coming to this one. My email is here, so if you want to take a picture of that. I also have the business card that has my personal email, either is fine. You can scan this code to automatically download the slides. It's also on the handout. And then this is also on the handout, but like, please, I would love it if you could give me some feedback. This is my first presentation outside of an academic class, and so I'm always looking to learn and grow. That's why I'm filming myself too. Yeah, and then so the same QR codes are on your handouts. In conclusion, I think if you haven't started Bayland, or if you've done a little bit of it, I hope this has given you another perspective. I hope it's motivated you to go and look and try new resources. There's so many tutorials on YouTube. There's so many resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. It's easy to learn, but you just have to kind of be willing and motivated. So I hope this has inspired you to do that. And please have a great rest of the day.